How do you improve breaststroke pulling? Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. And today we're going to talk about how to improve the breaststroke pull. And the strategy we're going to use is breaststroke with a dolphin kick. So pulling matters. Breaststroke, more than the other strokes, gets a lot of attention for the legs because the legs do contribute about half of the propulsion in the stroke, which is a lot more than the other strokes. That being said, the pull is still the other half. So 50% of the propulsion is going to come from the upper body. And if we ignore that, well, swimmers aren't going to swim as fast as they could. The pull also allows for more continuous speed because if we're waiting for a big impulse from the legs every time, it's going to be stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. So if swimmers have a great pull as well, they're going to be a lot more consistent with their speed. And that means, one, they're going to swim faster, but it's way harder to swim stop and go style than it is to swim more continuous. And so that's going to cause a big problem as well. The pull is important. Just as importantly, when they get to races, sometimes the legs go and they need to have the arms that they can rely on to get them home as well. If they only have one option and they lose that option, they're going to be in big trouble. The second aspect is the arms often drive the tempo. So if the arms are getting tired or the arms are inefficient or the arms are just slow, swimmers are going to find themselves in trouble and they're not going to swim as well as they could. While the kick gets all the attention, the pull is just as important. So what's the challenge with improving the breaststroke pull? First of all, it's very different from the other pulls. It's a lot more circular, it's a lot less linear, and there's a lot more changes in direction. Freestyle butterfly backstroke, it's kind of just set it up and pull it back, whereas in breaststroke, they kind of got to go out, and then they kind of come back, and then they got to cut off the stroke and then start recovering forward again. What's interesting about the pull too is that there's full range of motion in the shoulder. They get a full squeeze as they pull through, but they don't extend the arm at all to finish the stroke. They cut that off. And so that creates a really different feeling and a really different sensation that they're not getting in the other strokes. And because of that, it's really easy to focus on the hands and just kind of scull in versus actually squeezing and pulling in. So that can cause a lot of problems as well because it's easy and it feels right for swimmers to just use their hands, but really they're only using their upper arms to create propulsion, which is not nearly as effective as using the strongest muscles of the upper body, the pecs, and the lats. Lastly, breaststroke is a tough stroke to get right anyway, and so there has to be really precise timing. And so if swimmers are trying to mess around with their pull, they're trying to figure out their pull in the context of breaststroke swimming, it can feel really awful. And sometimes it can feel awful, not necessarily because the change that they're making with the pull is wrong, but because it's throwing off their timing and it's really hard to focus on one thing when everything else feels awful. So that's another challenge that's pretty unique to breaststroke that needs to be overcome to help swimmers improve. So probably my favorite strategy to help swimmers improve their pull is breaststroke with dolphin kick. I tend not to see it as a drill per se, but as a stroke I can train and a stroke I can develop to improve the skill of creating propulsion with the upper body in breaststroke. So we take away the breaststroke kick and we make them perform with the arms. The dolphin kick is a lot less effective than the breaststroke kick, and so they're going to have to pick up the slack with the upper body. So everything goes into the upper body. They got to figure out the skill, how do you create propulsion, and they also have to develop the fitness, the strength to, one, execute it well, and then two, sustain it. What's great about dolphin kick in particular is that it allows them to keep the hips up, it allows them to maintain their rhythm so that they can really swim it, they can swim it fast, and they can swim it for extended periods of time. And that means you can train it hard in a lot of different ways. And again, the only way they're going to perform is if they do it with the upper body because the legs really aren't going to be able to make much happen. And when they're training hard and performing, that means more skill, that means more fitness. It's a really simple strategy and it allows them to develop the pull without having to worry about the timing of the legs. They can just get after the arms, let it rip, and make it happen. What I also really like about breaststroke with dolphin kick is that it allows you to use a lot of other strategies that make it more effective. So the big one, add stroke counts. I've not listed it by mistake here 4 times. It's that important. It forces swimmers to stay long and find ways to be more efficient with their pull and get more out of each pull each time. They can learn how to change their stroke count. They can learn to go as low as possible, and they can learn to hit stroke counts on demand. It's all really effective for helping swimmers learn to get more out of their arms, and they don't have to worry about the breaststroke kick timing as well, so it makes it a lot easier to make that happen. You can add speed to it. You should add speed to it. You can have them do it at high stroke rates. You can have them do it at really low stroke rates. You can have them switch back and forth between stroke rates. And since we're trying to create more propulsion, resistance is obviously a great option, and you can use that in combination with the other options. And so you can use all of these. You can have them swim with different stroke counts and different speeds. You can mix it all up, and you can really push the limits And because they have to make it happen with the arms, the only way they're going to be able to stay long or swim fast or have a high rate or do so against resistance is to swim well. And it's all physical work. So they're going to develop the strength and the fitness along the way to actually execute these skills when it matters. And so not only is breaststroke with dolphin kick a good activity in general, but it's even more effective because you can combine it with these different strategies to really turn up the pressure, to really develop some skill and really develop some fitness. So here are some sets that you can use breaststroke with dolphin kick to develop better breaststroke pulling. And as I mentioned before, I like to combine it with a lot of other different activities to really take it to the next level. While just swimming breaststroke with dolphin kick can probably have somewhat of an impact, it's going to have a much bigger impact when you use some of these other strategies. So here are some introductory versions of those types of sets. So 1250s breaststroke with a dolphin kick, take fewer strokes, 1 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12. So they have to learn how to be efficient. Be surprised. Some swimmers can't make that happen at first, and then they get better at it, and then they're going to improve. Next is 1625s breaststroke with dolphin kick, and the odds they're going to take as few strokes as possible, and then the evens they're going to try to take as few strokes as possible and go as fast as possible. So they have to combine that. Now they got to stay long and create some speed. And then the next set is 6 rounds of 350s. The first is breaststroke with a dolphin kick and a parachute, and then breaststroke with a dolphin kick, and then regular breaststroke. And they're going to descend by round 1 to 3 at the same stroke count, so they have to figure out how to create more speed without taking more strokes. And they're going to do it in different contexts, one with resistance, one without resistance, and then one with regular breaststroke. So a lot of different ways to challenge stroke length and speed. And if they can prove their performances and that they can take longer strokes and that they can go faster and that they can do both at the same time, then they're going to have improved their skills, and they're also going to have improved the fitness of the upper body, which is ultimately what we're looking for. And a lot of times the skill aspect takes care of itself because they're focused on these performances, and the only way to achieve those performances is to improve. And then it's just a matter of integrating that better pull into regular breaststroke swimming. Hope that was helpful. As always, keep it simple.